We will continue to push for federal legislation that will support our efforts to ensure a uniform, stable, and legally sound future. Recently, a bipartisan group of Congress members sponsored the SCORE Act, designed to address issues that threaten college sports, but cannot be solved in the legal settlement in June. Creating a national standard, as opposed to state-by-state differences, codifies the student-athlete's right to earn money for their NIL and is paramount importance in ensuring that all institutions are operating under the same law.
The Drive with Tim Donnelly, 99.9 The Fan. That is part of the ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips' opening remarks at ACC Media Days earlier today. There are kind of two ways to handle the ever-changing rules, oftentimes kind of established and potentially enforced by court rulings and legislation and lawsuits. One is to wait around and wait until you're told what is allowed or isn't allowed. The other is to think everything that you haven't expressly been told is against the rules is fair game. And if you're going to win in the next few years, I think the latter is kind of the only way to operate. Right? That's kind of how NIL was and has been. And I know they're trying to rein some of it back in, but it's really hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube. Right? If you're waiting for uniform rules that impact the entire country and are effective in every single conference and in every single school, I think you're just falling behind the eight ball. Because there's others that are going, I don't think that's legal, or I don't think that applies here. Go, go, go. And they're going to get a few more recruits or operate a little bit differently. And being able to take advantage of things as they become available becomes massively important. Now, there's kind of two major conversations happening at all these media days, right? All of the conferences. Obviously, actually, I'll say three. There's obviously the football, right? You're talking to good players about how excited they are for the season, and you're talking to coaches about the football. Then there's how do you see the NIL world changing, right? Revenue share, that's kind of what we've played for you a few times from Jim Phillips. Then there's college football playoff. They went to the 12 teams this past year, didn't get it right because they had the automatic conference champion buys and home, and it ended up being where it was like better to be the 6th seed than the 2nd seed based on it was they didn't get it right, but they're tweaking it and going again. And they're going to continue to do that. Right? Everyone's pretty open with the fact that the CFP, the college football playoff, is not in its final form. Jim Phillips here makes the emphasis that winning your conference should matter with the college football playoff. Here's Jim Phillips.
I've always believed in rewarding conference champions. And if you're in a really good conference, I think like we have across the P4, and you're also part of the G6, conference championships matter. And that's been consistent in my 5 years, that they should be rewarded. Fairness and access should also be part of the equation. And so we have a really good playoff right now. It's the 5-7 model. I'm open to 5-9 and 5-11. I always look to our championships to try to have as much access as possible within reason. It has to make sense. I think 5-7 allows about 9% of those that play college football at the FBS level a chance to get into the playoff. And it goes up about 1.5%. So I think you get to nearly 12% if you go to a 5-11 model.
I wholeheartedly agree that winning your conference should matter. I also wholeheartedly agree that conference championships matter regardless of CFP. And I know that because of college basketball. Right? Because obviously when you say I want the conference championships to matter when it comes to CFP inclusion, you want it to be where the only way you can guarantee that you make it into the college football playoff is if you win your conference championship. And if you start having auto bids to different conferences, right? If you say 3 automatic bids for the SEC or Big Ten or ACC or whoever, then once you're in the conference championship, and if you're one of the two highest ranked teams, it pretty much, winners make it and losers make it, right? You're both already in. Well, that happens in college basketball all the time, right? There are years where in the ACC conference championship basketball game, it's like the number 1 team in the country against the number 5 team in the country. And I guess they might be fighting for seeds in the NCAA tournament, but they're both going to make it. Yet they still sell out, try hard, go all out because conference championships matter just on their own. I don't think it's impossible to have multiple auto bids for certain conferences and still have conference championships feel like they are important because they just are. That being said, I don't know if I love the 5-11. I don't know if I love multiple auto bids. It's not easy, right? I don't think there's a right answer here. So if I'm Jim Phillips, I'm just looking for what helps the ACC the best. And if that means, I'm kind of for auto bids as long as the ACC gets the same amount as the SEC and the Big Ten. If there's auto bids that make the ACC obviously a second tier, if it's 4 for them and 2 or 3 for the ACC, then I look at it and go, I'm not for that.
Well, I think if you go to the, name your conference gets 3 in automatically, well, then that devalues the conference championship.
It does.
In my eyes. So I think making the conference championship matters. In my eyes, Phillips is saying, yeah, the winner should go. Everyone else should be based on merit from the entire regular season, not just because, well, you're third best in the SEC, you're going to be automatically in there, so you don't have to fight for a conference title. No, I'm with it. If you win a conference championship, it should definitely matter. Then everything else should not be an auto bid.
The only difference is, like in college basketball, it's that way, obviously, but not everybody, but in a lot of ways, a lot of the conference makes the conference tournament in basketball, so you can have Cinderellas. If basketball were just, you pick the 2 best teams at the end of the season and put them in a conference championship, they absolutely would both be getting in, and all they would be, quote unquote, all they would be playing for is the conference championship and the banner that you raise with the conference championship. I think schools will always care about conference championships regardless of if you need it to get into the CFP or not, because there's prestige there, and that's a goal that a lot of people have, is to win the ACC or Big Ten or whatever it is. Let's move on to more Jim Phillips content here. I say this a lot, basketball has to matter, right? When you talk about the future of college sports, I'm not saying it's more important than football. I'm not saying it's 40% of football. I don't know what it is, but basketball has to matter. And Jim Phillips here says men's basketball is vital to the ACC.
Basketball is the crown jewel of all of our championships, I think. CFP certainly is really important and draws an awful lot. Ends up being a financial engine for all of us. But I think the country really enjoys March like nothing else.
I agree with that as well. March Madness is awesome. You want to hear the dirty little secret about that? I think that makes it way more plausible that football could break off and do their own thing, because then you can just go, you still have March Madness, it's $1 billion, it's all the, you'll still have, we're not asking you to turn everything into Division III, right? We're not asking you to turn it into club sports. We're going to take football over here because it's become a behemoth that you can't really contain, and basketball will then be your crown jewel in the exact way that Jim Phillips just described it, and that March Madness will continue to be a cash cow, because I don't see, how it could be ruined unless you make it like 96 teams. Speaking of, that's another conversation that's happening a lot, and I don't get why. Jim Phillips' address, does the NCAA tournament expansion make sense?
Logistically, it has to make sense. The compression of when tournaments finish, and then when you have the Masters, which obviously with a partner like CBS, you're not going to change that, only allows you a certain amount of time to get these games in. So you can't hastily expand the tournament if you haven't looked at that, and player safety and number of games and what it would mean for travel and how you would work those additional 4 or 8. But as I said earlier, I always like additional access for teams and for schools when it's the right time and when it's the right tournament and format.
All right, I'm gonna end this just how I started talking about Jim Phillips. And this is like, kids do not operate this way in your life. Sometimes in business, you got to be cutthroat. Stop being so darn worrying about others. Stop being so considerate. You're worried about the Masters? Listen, I love the Masters. I was disappointed yesterday. The lottery came out. I didn't get tickets to the Masters. I'm a golf nerd. Who cares if CBS has to do something else with the Masters, or you have to, like, it's who? Don't, like, you do you, make other people go around you is kind of what I'm looking at here. That's the way the best, like, the NFL schedules on Saturday every single chance they can. Whenever the law says they are allowed to schedule games on Saturday, they do it, and they don't care if there's college football going on. They're scheduling on, remember, the ACC used to own Thursdays. Thursday night football used to be drag-out ACC football, and it was awesome. NFL said, oh, football works on Thursday? We'll take that. And now they have competition. They're not worried about you. Nobody else is worried about you, and you're making all these, well, we got to make sure CBS and the Masters can work it out together. You're March Madness. You're the NCAA. You're a behemoth. Throw your weight around a little bit.
Yeah, well, CBS also doesn't want to have something competing against itself. That's the thing. Like, CBS broadcasting the Masters.
I get that.
Yeah.
Let CBS figure it out.
I don't think they would. CBS is going to say no.
Cool.
That's
then
what they're going to do.
Play them on Monday. Play them on Wednesday. Like, actually, the first four already is on Tuesday and Wednesday, right? You're not playing golf on Tuesday and Wednesday. You're going to put more teams there. You're going to put more games there. Do it. It's like we need to get a collaboration. We need all of college sports to get together. We have to make sure that there's no inconveniences on our broadcast partners. I'm going, fight for the ACC for me one time. You might lose some fights, by the way. You probably will. But go down with, like, your ACC flag waving, right? No one else is looking out for the ACC is what I'm saying. So, again, don't operate this way in life. But in business, sometimes you got to be cutthroat.